before the Great Flood changed the world forever. The horizon was stained with the color of an old bruise. Air hung heavy, thick with the scent of stagnant water and the sharp metallic tang of unearned greed. Humanity moved through the streets in a fever, driven by a cycle of hatred that had long since forgotten how to stop. In the middle of this suffocating sprawl, one man stood apart. Noah gripped a heavy wooden beam, his palms split and weeping blood where the rough grain caught his skin. He drove a peg into the timber with a single brutal swing of his hammer. The sound cracked through the stillness like a gunshot. Around him, the city buzzed with the sound of laughter and hollow arguments. A chorus of voices blind to the gathering pressure. They pointed, they mocked. They saw only a man wasting his strength on a pile of wood in the dirt. Noah did not look up. He did not speak. He measured the next beam with eyes set like stone. He was a silent anchor in a world drifting into the dark. Every strike of his hammer was a refusal to join the chaos. He worked while the world decayed, building a sanctuary against an end that only he could feel approaching. Noah paused, his breath hitching in the dry heat. The city noise, once a constant roar of vanity, seemed to lose its sharp edges. The wind died. The dust settled on the wood. Then, the command arrived, not as a whisper, but as a weight upon his spirit. Build an ark. The voice resonated, clear and absolute. A vessel of gopher wood, 3 stories high, sealed with pitch inside and out. It was a blueprint for survival carved into the silence. Noah did not look for a witness. He did not seek to explain the scale of the task to anyone passing by. He simply laid his hand upon the timber and nodded. The shift was immediate. His movements, once those of a man acting on his own resolve, became those of a man carrying out a design beyond his own understanding. He measured the ground. He calculated the width of the keel. The impossible scale of the project did not break him. It focused him. He picked up his mallet and struck the first wedge of a new purpose. The hammer hit the wood with a deeper, more resonant sound than before. A sanctuary was no longer a dream. It was a mission. The sun became their constant overseer. Noah and his sons hauled timber from the distant forests, their shoulders raw and mapped with calluses. They worked in a rhythm dictated by the rise and fall of the light. Each beam was measured, cut, and hoisted into place with gritted teeth and strained muscles. Sweat carved channels through the dust on their faces, dripping onto the parched earth. The wood groaned under the pressure of the rising structure, a massive spine of gopher wood beginning to dominate the landscape. They worked through the heat of the day, their movements becoming a wordless language of haul, lift, and secure. Even when the midday sun turned the air into a furnace, they did not stop. Their consistent, rhythmic hammering created a sharp contrast to the distant, mocking laughter of the city dwellers who gathered to watch the strange activity. The world outside continued its cycle of vanity, oblivious to the purpose of the rising hull. The vessel grew, floor by floor, a silent giant taking shape in the desert. Noah's hands never slowed. He drove the pegs deep, sealing the seams with pitch until the air around the site smelled of resin and hard work. They were building a future, while the present ignored them. The crowds arrived by mid-morning, drawn by the sheer absurdity of the timber rising in the dry dust. They stood at the edge of the construction site, hands on their hips, pointing fingers at the massive hull. They laughed, their voices sharp and dismissive, throwing insults that bounced off the wooden beams like hail. A man stepped forward, shouting a challenge to the sky, demanding to know why Noah wasted his life on a box that would never touch water. Noah stopped his work. He walked to the edge of the scaffolding, his feet steady on the unfinished wood. He did not look at the ground. He looked directly at them. The wind caught his words, carrying them across the clearing. He spoke of the coming rain, of the turning of the tide, and of the judgment that would soon sweep the land clean. His voice was not loud, but it cut through the noise of the mocking crowd. The laughter faltered. A few people stepped back, uncomfortable with the intensity of his gaze. They did not understand, and they did not want to. They shook their heads, turned their backs, and retreated toward the safety of their city. Noah watched them go, then turned back to his mallet. The silence returned, heavier than before, leaving him alone with his mission. The change began not in the sky, but in the earth. A low, rhythmic thrumming vibrated through the soles of Noah's feet, growing steady and insistent. He climbed down from the scaffolding and watched the horizon. From the edge of the forest, the first pair emerged. A massive bull and cow, heads low, moving with a singular, unswerving purpose. Behind them, the plains darkened with movement. Birds descended in thick, swirling clouds, their wings beating in unison, while predators and prey walked side by side, their instincts silenced by an unseen directive. The air grew thick with the scent of musky hides and dry earth. The ground shuddered under the cumulative weight of thousands of hooves and paws. Noah stood at the base of the massive wooden gate as the procession reached the site. There was no chaos, no fighting, only the sound of breathing and the relentless tramping of feet. Pairs of every kind, winged, furred, and scaled, filed into the dark, yawning belly of the structure. The sheer scale of the migration made the air feel thin, charged with a heavy, impending gravity. The time for words had vanished. The earth itself seemed to hold its breath as the last of the pairs crossed the threshold, the structure groaning softly under the sudden, immense burden of life gathered within its walls. Noah motioned to his family. One by one, they stepped across the threshold, leaving the familiar dust of the earth for the dim, timber-lined corridors inside. The interior was vast, smelling of pitch and raw wood. He stood at the entrance for one final look at the horizon, his hand resting against the heavy, reinforced frame. Then, the air shifted. A force, unseen and immense, took hold of the massive gate. It swung inward, guided by a power beyond his own. The timber groaned as it collided with the frame, locking with a sound like a mountain falling. The seal was absolute. Outside, the world abruptly ceased its noise. The 7 days that followed were a vacuum of sound. No birds sang, no wind stirred the trees. Inside the darkness, the silence was a physical weight, pressing against the walls and the people huddled within. Noah waited, his breath shallow, counting the heartbeats of a world caught in a state of suspended animation. On the 7th day, the pressure broke. The light filtering through the high gaps in the hull dimmed, and then the sky transformed. A bruised, deep purple bled across the horizon, suffocating the sun. The air turned biting cold. A low, rhythmic rumble began to vibrate through the floorboards, the sound of the world's foundation finally cracking. The sky did not leak. It shattered. A deafening crack tore through the atmosphere, and the first wave of water slammed into the earth with the force of a falling mountain. It was not rain. It was a solid, crushing weight that blinded the horizon. At the same moment, the ground beneath the ark shuddered violently. The earth split open. Massive fountains of water erupted from the deep, geysers of mud and stone surging upward to meet the deluge from above. The foundation of the world was dissolving. The ark rocked, its massive timber frame screaming as the rising tide clawed at the hull. Noah braced himself against a support beam, his feet sliding on the vibrating floor as the structure tilted at a sharp, sickening angle. The sound outside was a chaotic roar, a violent mixture of thunder, crashing timber, and the relentless, suffocating rush of water. The vessel groaned, the wood straining against the sudden, immense buoyancy. Then, with a final, jarring jerk, the ark broke free from the earth. It lifted, tossing wildly as the floodwaters claimed the land, turning the world into a churning, dark abyss that swallowed every landmark and every memory of dry ground. For 40 days, the rain hammered the hull. It was a rhythmic, relentless percussion that never ceased, turning the world into a vast, featureless prison of gray water. Inside, the air was stagnant, thick with the scent of wet hay and the musk of thousands of living things. The space was narrow, lit only by the faint, flickering glow of oil lamps that cast long, dancing shadows against the timber walls. There were no horizons anymore, There was no sky. Every mountain, every tree, every city that had once stood under the sun was swallowed by the rising tide. The family sat huddled in the center of the middle deck, their backs pressed against cold, vibrating beams. They did not speak. The sound of the waves crashing against the exterior was too loud, a constant, low-frequency roar that shook the very marrow of their bones. Noah watched his sons, their knuckles white as they gripped the support beams. Every time the vessel pitched, they tightened their hold, bodies locking together in the dark. The memory of the earth, the touch of dry soil, the heat of the sun, the sound of wind through leaves faded with every passing hour. Outside, the deep claimed everything. Inside, there was only the damp, the darkness, and the terrifying weight of the silence that lay just beyond the wood. The rhythm stopped. The relentless drumming against the hull died away, replaced by a silence so heavy it felt like a physical pressure. Noah moved to the small, high hatch and pushed it open. The air that rushed in was cold, sharp, and tasted of nothing. No smoke, no soil, no life, only salt and water. He waited until the horizon cleared, then reached into the shadows of the hold and withdrew a raven. He tossed it into the gray expanse. It circled, dipped toward the water, and vanished into the mist, never to return. Days bled into one another. Noah opened the hatch again. This time, he held a dove, its heart beating rapidly against his palm. He released it. It flew until it was a speck against the vast, empty sky, then turned back, circling the ark before landing on the ledge. It had found no place to rest. He waited 7 more days. The sun finally broke through the clouds, turning the water into a shimmering, endless mirror. He sent the dove out a second time. Hours passed. The family sat in the dim light, watching the hatch. Then, a flutter of wings. The bird landed on the wood. Noah reached out, his fingers trembling, and touched the small, green sliver clutched in its beak. An olive leaf. A fragment of life. The world was breathing again. The hull scraped against stone. A shuddering, final halt. Mount Ararat had caught them. Noah unlatched the massive door, and the air hit him crisp, clean, and smelling of wet rock. He stepped out onto the summit, his legs unsteady after months on the water. Below, the world was a vast, washed canvas, stripped of the old corruption. He gathered stones, stacking them into a rough altar, and placed his offering upon the wood. As the smoke rose, the sky shifted. Clouds parted, and a brilliant arc of color shattered the gray, painting a bridge of light from one horizon to the other. It was a promise signed in light, a vow that the deep would never again swallow the earth. Noah watched the colors deepen, knowing the storm was truly over. His journey stands as a testament. Faith is not a passive thought, but a deliberate, daily act of trust. When your own storms gather and the path ahead fades, remember the promise of the bow. If this story of resilience and hope resonated with you, show your support with a like. Subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to keep these timeless lessons close. Share this message with someone who needs to be reminded that every ending is a new beginning. You are part of this story, and together we keep the light of faith burning.